Hello, everyone, and welcome to the People Strategy Forum. Today's guest is here to tackle a quiet epidemic in workplaces everywhere, the lack of buy-in. Dave Garrison is a co-founder of Garrison Growth and the co-author of Buy-in, a leadership playbook that reveals why employees disengage and how the best leaders can re-engage them at scale. With decades of experience guiding leadership teams through those high-stake changes, Dave helps organizations build cultures where people show up, speak up, and lean in because they truly care. He's not just about strategy, he's about creating those meaningful alignments and that durable commitment. So, that long term buy in commitment. So, if you're wrestling with turnover, quiet quitting, or low energy and want tools to bring your people back to purpose, this episode is for you. So, give us a little bit of time and we'll give you a mind shift. So, let's welcome Dave Garrison. Welcome, Dave.
Sam, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
So the first thing, Dave, I would just love to dig into a little bit of your past and how did you get to where you are today and the passion to help leaders?
I belong to a couple of organizations that are CEOs, and I've had a lot of time around the C-suite, both as a chief executive officer, chairman of companies, and board member of companies. And what I see is everybody has great intention, but everybody has a long list of stuff to do. And when I go into a room of 100 CEOs and I'll say, hey, raise your hand if you've got the time to get to what's really important. Almost no hands go up. We don't have time because other things are demanding our time. And that's not the fault of the CEO or any other executive or middle manager. That's kind of organizational reality. And what that does is it leaves potential on the table because we don't have time to get to the important stuff. And that's not one company, that's tens of thousands of organizations. And so the question is, how do you break out of that trap? And what we've learned through research and the data says it's when you're able to focus on people
Mhm.
and helping by giving leaders tools to engage people that you can break out of the trap and truly begin scaling and quit falling victim to the to-do list.
Yeah. Yeah, no kidding. I mean, if we're just checking the boxes off of tasks and we're really not thinking strategically, right? So it's important. But I would love to dive into a little bit about your book. I mean, talking about time commitment. I mean, you've just got done writing a the book Buy-in. Tell us a little bit about that book and who it's for.
Yeah, the buy-in advantage, why employees stop caring what great leaders are doing to inspire them, really came about from our work with clients over the last 10 years. Our team works with clients in a variety of industries facing all kinds of strategic challenges. And what we found is the question that's continually being asked is, what do we need to do? What do we need to do? But the discussion of how we do it is often never talked about because we're too busy. So
Right.
this book was really created to identify the best practices, the how, if you will, from companies that are hugely successful. I wish I had this book when I was a CEO in high growth companies. My life would have been so much easier, but I didn't know. I was falling victim to the what, not the how myself. And so we've collected these stories and put them into a guidebook that is really meant to be a reference guide
Hmm.
to how do you interview? How do you prioritize? How do you engage people's best thinking without bringing the organization to a halt? What do you do when people knock on the door and say, what do you want me to do about? Most leaders don't know because they've never seen how others can do it. They've only seen what happens in their companies, and most companies have really low engagement scores. The US is in a crisis. It's the buy-in crisis. The net percentage of people who truly care is about 30%. It's actually at a decade low, according to Gallup.
Yeah.
Really successful, engaged companies are more like 60, 70, 80%, not 30%. And there's a direct correlation between percentage engaged and financial results.
Yeah, so well, I know how important a framework and a guidebook is to have. So I too I help high growth companies in the realm of compensation and talent management. So to put in those important frameworks for growth. And so the that step-by-step approach and a way to follow to scale is critical. So the but if we could just dive in a little bit more. So what exactly does buy-in mean? Why is it more important than agreement and than mere compliance?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, Sam, remind me what part of the country you live in.
So I'm in Colorado currently.
Right. So I'm sure you've been to a Friday night football game,
Oh yeah,
right?
for
And you've
sure.
seen the enthusiasm in the stands. And it's not just the parents who have players in the game, it's a community enthusiasm. How is it that we allow those same people to show up and suck all that enthusiasm out of them by Monday morning? And they say, "What would you like me to do?" And they're really polite. They're really nice. You ask them, are they happy? Oh, yeah, I'm happy. I appreciate the benefits. I appreciate, the people I work with. But they're not engaged. They're just mechanically going through it. And you've identified, look, compensation is important. That's table stakes.
Yeah.
What's more important is, do people feel, in your words, valued, engaged, and motivated? In our world, do they feel like their opinion counts? Are they working with people that they believe have their back?
Hmm.
Are they given the authority to do what needs to get done in a way that they define? In other words, do they have flexibility in how they do their work? If people feel valued, they trust the people they work with, they have the flexibility, and they're appropriately compensated, you're on the way to the races. But that doesn't happen in most organizations.
And why is that, Dave? Why does that? I mean, it seems like a natural thing. I mean, we all want to be happy. Why can't leaders just think about how do I make my people happy so they're engaged and give them and remove those obstacles? What's going on?
And I'm going to drive a wedge between happy and engaged because I've seen so many organizations where the people are happy, they're appreciative.
Yeah.
They like it there, but they're not engaged. They do what they are told. It is not the leader's fault. The leaders have never been exposed to what it means to have engaged employees. They've never been exposed to the techniques that allow people to be fully engaged. So, one of the principles we talk about in the buy-in advantage is treating people like human beings, not human doings. So,
Yeah.
here's a typical exchange. You go into you feel like, oh man, our receivables are out of control. So you go into accounting and you talk to the person doing accounts receivable and you say, "Hey, how you doing?" And they say, "Fine." And you say, "Look, I want to talk about receivables." That's treating somebody like a human doing, not a human being. If you engage with a human being, if they say fine, you're going to say, "Can you tell me what you're celebrating right now? What's really going on with for you? What's happening? What are you celebrating in your personal life?" And connect with them as a human being before you ask them to do something. Allow them to know you truly value them as a person before they are just, we used to say, "How many hands do you have?" And in business, and now we've graduated to say, "What's your head count?" I don't want heads. I want brain power, yes, but I want heart power and gut power. I want people to bring their gut judgment. I want them to bring their hearts to work and to live into our values. And think about, what would it be like if I were truly engaged, if I brought everything I had to this position? Imagine how this organization would change
Yeah.
because people feed off that energy.
Right. I mean, that totally makes sense. But let's think about what's going on right now. I mean, right now there's a lot of companies that are in distress. They're budget tight. Some of them are doing layoffs. We
Yes.
also have the encroaching world of artificial intelligence that is ramping up productivity and creating stress among workforce. And so leaders under that stress are thinking about doing, and then also they're thinking about productivity, also a doing thing as well. And so there's how does a leader reframe their mindset in this crazy world?
Sam, that is the $64,000 question, and I'd point out a couple of things. If you're under pressure for, "I don't have any more money," and if you're under pressure for, "You better produce results," then please double down on the buy-in advantage. Here's why. It doesn't cost anything. It's leaders' behavior that allow people to give their best. And imagine if everybody on your team were truly pulling towards the same goals. Imagine how much better the results will be. One of the things we talk about in the book, for example, is delegation.
Hmm.
Most leaders do not do a great job of delegation. Why? No fault of their own. They've never been taught how to delegate effectively. So what happens is they ask somebody to do something, they tell them how to do it, and 2 weeks later they check in and it's either not done or done the wrong way. So the leader gets the message right away. Delegation doesn't work. I'll just do it myself. My people are busy. I can do it better than they can. I can do it faster than they can. And so you're in basically a maze. You're in a trap. You're in the hamster wheel. You'll never break out of scaling. You'll never get better results if you, the leader, feel like you can't delegate. But here's what effective delegation looks like. The leader has to do the work to identify specifically what the outcome is. That's not how to do it, it's what's the outcome. And then answer this important question: what does great look like? How do I know when it's been done well? Not how to do it. How do I know when it's done well? And then think about who on your team has the gifts to do that particular task and share with them the outcome and the list of what great looks like and ask them a question. We talk about in chapter 6, ask questions, don't give answers. So ask them, how would you do this? And then listen to their answer. Don't correct, don't judge. Say, what allows you to think that? Or tell me about other ways you might do it. And grow your people, because your people's muscle to get stuff done and make decisions is the key to unlocking productivity. Otherwise, you're going to go faster and faster. Results will continue to slide. Then you'll have to do more layoffs. Then you'll have disengaged people. And then you'll have worse results. And then you're in the cycle.
Right. That's crazy.
And another way that shows up, Sam, is when people come to you and they say, "Hey, boss, what do you want me to do about?" That's when you ask a question. Don't give them an answer. If you give them your experience, that's well intended. You get a dopamine hit. That's terrific. You feel like you've really helped them. You haven't. You've undermined the organization. Because what we want are people to have developed that muscle of judgment. So a great leader who inspires people to give it their all will ask a question. The question is simply, Sam, how have you thought about this, and what are ways that you would approach it? And whatever they say, do not issue judgment, because judgment and curiosity cannot coexist. Say, that's really an interesting solution. What else did you consider? How did you know that was a good answer? Let people teach you how they think about things so you can serve them and say, if you also consider this criteria, how would that influence your answer? And really enable people to build self-esteem and to build their muscle of discernment and decision making and execution. And that's how you get better results.
Another thing, I mean, of course, that's excellent as far as how to delegate effectively and ensure people are thinking about the next best action and doing that homework themselves, enabling them to do that.
Yeah.
Now, and do you see that engagement is different by demographic or different age groups today?
Yeah, you're probably familiar with love languages.
Oh, yes.
And
Yeah.
in love languages, love languages are acts of service and gifts and time together. And what am I leaving out? There are other love languages.
Right.
There are five of them, and I knew them Saturday night at a dinner party, and I've already forgotten them, but there are five of them. And what we tend to do is we tend to give love in the way that we want to get it,
Yeah.
as opposed to the way of the receiver. And it is true for generations, meaning the generations in the workforce as well. Like baby boomers will do things a certain way. Millennials value something else. We now have the fastest growing part of the workforce in Gen Zs, and they are the first generation that doesn't put money first necessarily. They're equally interested in purpose.
Hmm.
Why does this work matter? And they are equally interested in personal and professional development.
Yeah.
And what I hear out of the older generation that supervises them, I'm thinking about a particular CFO who says, okay, well, let's talk about your career pathing. That's not the question being asked by a Gen Zer. They're asking about personal and professional development. So if you want them to be fully engaged, sit down with your Gen Zer and say, hey, will you please give some thought to what does personal development look like to you? What's most important? And what does professional development look like to you? And build a plan with them against their goals, not against your, well, if you hang in here long enough, one day you could be a vice president.
Yeah.
Meaningless to the Gen Z. And so it's important to set aside what you think is good and what you think is important for your generation versus the person that you are working to inspire.
Right, right. It's just funny. I was just thinking because I saw the movie that came out F1 the other night. Have you seen that one, Dave?
I have not.
Oh yeah. So you should because it's exactly what you're talking about. It's the purpose and passion over money. And so that and of course it's just a thrilling movie to watch overall, but
Awesome.
yeah, so it's definitely aligns with that concept. I mean, and so I think that you're exactly right. We need to know who we're talking to. And we need to identify, what motivates them and so forth to ensure that we are engaging them effectively and they're also they stay with the organization. Yeah. So I talk to too many leaders who try to pull the cash lever to get people to stay, and that's only is going to last for just a short period of time, right?
It is a temp. So there was a group of very talented CEOs in upstate New York who said to us, "Hey, we want to talk to you about a problem we've got." And this is across industries. And I said, "What's the problem?" And they said, "We are feeling victims because we have competitors who are stealing our employees away for money, and we're not going to let the competitors run our P&Ls. In other words, we're not going to step up and match those crazy offers.
Yeah.
This is insane. What are we supposed to do?" And I said, "Oh, money's important." And they said, "That's why people are leaving." And we know from our work that's not why people leave. If you have somebody who's fully engaged, the data from Gallup suggests they have to get at least a 30% pay raise in order to be attracted away if they are engaged.
Yes. Mhm.
Employees do not get 30% pay raise offers. The greatest lie ever told, according to a good friend of mine who's former vice chair of one of the big investment banks in Wall Street, says, "Dave, the greatest lie ever told is, hey, Sam, I found a better job." And that's just not true. What's true is this place is not meeting my needs, and my boss doesn't get it and doesn't get me. So I'm bailing out. And so, what we found when we did a survey of this group of CEOs' direct reports is money was fifth on the list.
Mhm.
Fifth on the list behind, do I have the authority that lines up with the responsibility I got? Do I trust the people to cover my six that I work with? Do I find a purpose greater than money in the work that I do, etc.? So is money important? Absolutely. Is a comp plan that treats people fairly and lines up with what it is you want them to do? Absolutely. And that's just a table stake.
That's
It's
right.
not about money.
It's the beginning and the starting place.
Yeah. As you said, it is about feeling valued, is about being engaged and about being motivated. How do you motivate people? Align them with something greater than themselves. Align them with a cause. It's a compelling purpose we talk about in the buy-in advantage. If you cannot clearly have every single employee understand and see themselves in a greater purpose other than making money, Walt Disney said, "We're in the business of creating happiness." Google says, "We're in the business of organizing the world's information." Self-driving cars don't matter to Google. It matters that they collect data on where you want to go and how long you're there and where you live. And that's data they resell. That's their business model, but their purpose is organizing information. It's why they created Google Maps. They're not in the map business. They're in the business of wanting to see what you want to see and then selling that information to people who care.
So, Dave, can a leader help a person find their passion, their purpose, and align that to the company?
I think that it starts at the interview process, and I think there's a golden opportunity to ask a couple of questions in the interview process. One is tell them what your purpose is and say, how do you see yourself in that purpose, or what does that purpose mean to you? And if there is an alignment, and if you're just looking at, well, they have 4 years experience as a product manager and they loosely were in the industry, you're going to have a turnover issue and you're going to be doing the same interview in 18 months or less. If you share with them what your purpose is and ask, how do you see yourself in the purpose? Or Share one of the values and say, can you tell me a time in your life when you've lived into this value, or what's that value mean to you, or how have you applied it in your life? You're going to learn, is there a lineup around compelling purpose and values? If there is, you're a long way towards engagement. If you have an existing employee, if you don't have a compelling purpose, create one and share it. If you do have one, ask your existing employees, how do you see yourself in this greater good that we're doing?
So, as we started out the conversation, you mentioned that some leaders don't know what good engagement looks like or feels like. So when the many leaders are listening into this session right now, what is the first thing that they should do to evaluate the state of their organization?
What we suggest is this. First of all, do your own self-assessment. We have a website called buyinbook.com, and we have a simple, like 8 question assessment where you can assess yourself whether or not you have a buy-in problem. Then we'd recommend you have your team take another assessment, all free. And we've even given you a chapter of the book at buyinbook.com. And then have your team discuss, what is our situation currently? Because one of the things about being a human is we all have this huge blind spot. As a pilot, I call it my 6 o'clock. I can't see what I can't see, but collectively we can see together. All of us are smarter than any of us. So you take the assessment yourself, have your team take the assessment, and then have a discussion. Like the HR leader of a public company in Detroit was telling me this morning, he said, it's our team all took the assessment independently and then discussed our answers. And it was a great discussion because we learned how each other see the organization. And then you can prioritize, okay, what should we attack first? But even before you take the assessment, you know if talent is leaving. You know if you have a turnover issue. You know if meetings are starting late or they're running over or they don't have focus. You know if people do exactly what they're asked and no more. You know if people don't know how it is this organization is making a difference.
Hmm.
You know it intuitively, whether or not you've stopped to consider it. Just do the self-assessment. You get the results instantly. It's free. I mean, come on.
Makes sense. So I think that this gives people a good start, of how to assess their organization. And then, of course, many of our listeners out there say, oh, well, geez, I would love to talk to Dave a little bit more to learn more about this. I mean, how do they get a hold of you, Dave?
You first of all go to buyinbook.com. Second of all, you can check with us at LinkedIn. So check on LinkedIn. We do a lot of posts about specific techniques that we see successful leaders put into place, and we share those a couple of times a week. You can sign up for our newsletter, and you can reach us at engage@garrisongrowth.com. Love to hear from you. Love to hear about what works for you.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Dave. This has been a great conversation and really enjoyed you sharing all your knowledge with our audience here. So is there anything that is going on in the rest of the year that you're looking forward to?
Oh my goodness. I have the opportunity to work with groups of leaders around the country and internationally as well. And I've got so many engagements I look forward to because I learn from every single leader that we work with. So I am looking forward to being on the road and meeting with great leaders and learning what works for them and then learning how they put these techniques to work. Again, the techniques cost nothing except for time and intention. So check out the buy-in advantage and figure out where you start. You don't have to do it all at once. Just pick one or two things. We have a saying in the book that says, look, three is greater than seven. Here's new math. If you've got 7 things, you don't have priorities. You've got a laundry list.
Yeah, that's right.
The 3 things: agree with your team, collective genius, tap into everybody's smarts, and get started because there's no time like now. Next week is not going to do it.
Good advice. Well, thank you everyone for joining us here on the People Strategy Forum. We'll see you next week. Thank you, Dave. I really appreciate it, and we'll